Okay. Okay. Welcome and a very good afternoon to everyone. Okay, thank you for joining us today. I'm Siti Masri. I will be your moderator for today. Okay. So thank you for joining us this afternoon. For our Mother's Day special, the working mom, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The ugly. Okay. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our organizer for our program, SERATA, Society for Equality, Respect, and Trust for All. Okay, SERATA's goal is going towards the direction of bridging equality through partnership. Our program and advocacy efforts are directed towards achieving gender equality involving both genders. Okay, I am proud to say that our society is expanding and are actively engaging of people with different backgrounds, but with the same end goal in mind. So we've been around for since 2018, and we would be more than welcome to have you. We will be more than happy to have you on board if you want to join our course. Okay. Okay. For today, we're gonna because the the program is working mom, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Why we choose today? Because we believe today is the perfect day to have this session with our amazing speakers and panelists, which I'm going to introduce to you guys in a while. We just celebrated Mother's Day, and Father's Day is just around the corner. So we believe that we are still in the spirit of celebrating our parents, or the parents around us. Okay, we would also want to take this opportunity to explain, due to our hectic life, and also to balance the work and the life of our panelists, and also all parties that involved in this project, we have adapted a new lineup for the convenience of all parties to make today's work for us. Okay, without further ado, I would like to introduce our speakers and panelists for today. Okay, firstly, for our speakers, we have Ms. Tashni Sukumaran. She's a senior analyst from Institute of Strategic and International Studies Malaysia, and she will be our speakers today, our main speaker today. And as for our panelist lineup, we would have our Dr. Nur Azrin Zamri, a senior lecturer in UiTM with a PhD in Applied Linguistics, focusing on motherhood identities. Our own Mr. Robert Nicholas He, the Vice President of SERATA. And we have Miss Feli Edwin, a full-time working mom of 3 in an MNC. And last but not least, our Miss Juni Lau, Asia Director of One IFRA. I'm sorry, One IFRA. Yes, yeah. Okay. Okay. So how we're gonna do this? We're gonna invite our speakers first, and then we're gonna introduce the panelists as we go. Okay. Okay. For the panelists, we would like to extend a warm welcome to our Miss Tashni Kumaran, a senior analyst in the Foreign Policy and Studies Division, Security Studies Division in Institute of Strategic and International Studies, Malaysia. Ms. Tashni is the founder of 50/50 Malaysia, and also an activist of cyber, which mission is to empower, motivate, educate, and change the perception of girls and women in cybersecurity. So let's go to the first question we have for Ms. Tashni. Okay, Ms. Tashni, our first question for you is that could you please share with us what is your opinion on how is our country's job market faring, and maybe you could provide us and the audience with a brief analysis of how Malaysia is doing during these trying times, and how are things going to be looking up in the next quarter. I pass it to you.
Okay, thank you. And also thanks everyone for inviting me. SERATA, thanks for having me. I'm really excited about this. Okay, so I'm just gonna go straight into your question because you've already given me a very nice introduction. Now, the job market did recover a bit in the first quarter of this year, in the sense that the decline was slower than 2020, but still not great compared to, of course, pre-COVID times, right? Which stands to reason because of the lockdown. But given the current numbers of cases every day, the deaths, the rumors of an impending lockdown, the overall precarity and lack of clarity with regards to what's going to happen to different sectors, it doesn't look good. It's hard to remain optimistic. But regarding the job market, unemployment continues. I think it's about 4 point something% according to the Department of Statistics first quarter results. So no, I don't think that we're going to see a robust recovery this year. We might see a decline in the aggression, but it won't be robust.
So it looks like this COVID is really taking a toll on how a country is running. Yeah. See?
Yeah.
So there have been reports about women leaving the workforce, right, Ms. Tashni, and throughout the pandemic year to care for the family. So this is basically one of the things that we've seen around us, which people are leaving their jobs just to fulfill the position of a caregiver in the house. So what is IC's take on this? Is there would this affect the economy of this country if this is what it's gonna go for quite some time?
Okay, I'm really glad you asked me that, because that is one of my main research focuses at ISIS. Although I have to just provide the disclaimer that we as an institution, we don't have a stance on things because we're a research facility. So it'll be my opinion on the situation, yeah? So I just want to preface what I'm going to say next by saying that gender equality is not just good for the economy, and it shouldn't be just about the economy, but it is also good for society as a whole with regards to, a healthier society, a more robust society, more productive society, all these things that are less tangible than the economics of per capita income or GDP, right? A healthier, happier society is just equally as important as sort of a capitalistic goal. So now that we've established that, COVID has set Malaysia back quite far. And for women specifically, it set it back about 2 years of progress. We were starting to overcome the gender wage gap. We're starting to see higher labor force participation. Now we see it stagnating because of the pandemic. And a lot of it is to do with unpaid care work. Women tend to, the world over, women tend to bear the burden of unpaid care work. And this doesn't just mean children, it also means the housework, and older parents or in-laws, yeah? Women frequently have to do the work of looking after these things. Statistically, globally, women make up 39% of the workforce, but during the COVID, the pandemic era, they make up 54% of job losses. So they are disproportionately affected, and Malaysia is not any different, yeah? In Malaysia, we see we're 104th place according to WEF, the World Economic Forum, in the gender wage gap. And women are 55, 56% of the labor force participation rate, and 55% of university graduates. And what's interesting is that women consistently outperform men in tertiary education and in secondary education, including in science and math. So it is like a myth that women are not good at science and math, obviously, right? We just don't see very much focus in these arenas because, and it comes back to unpaid care work. Just cut me off if you have any questions, or I'm going off tangent, right? I'm just very interested in this topic. So the challenges here are that women not only leave their jobs because of the burdens of childcare, they also tend not to re-enter the workforce after they get married or have kids, right? So they just don't tend to come back from after they have maternity leave. Maybe they go back for a bit and then they leave to look after the kid better. And this is because we have a shortage of childcare services, places you can leave your kid, or if, as many Malaysians do, rely on the in-laws or their parents, transit cost is also a huge issue. So if I have a job and I can leave my kid with my mom, for example, many people obviously don't live with their in-laws or their parents after marriage. So am I going to say drive from PJ to Subang, or like in my case from KL to Sungai Buloh to leave my kid there, then go to work, right? The transit cost in terms of time, money, it is a huge toll. So many parents decide, okay, one of the parents have to stop work, and due to our cultural and societal norms, it is usually the woman, because in Malaysian society there's still this idea that men have to have jobs, right? Men should be working. Yeah.
So I'm taking it, what you're saying is basically all of this is the external factors that is affecting women more than it affects man.
Yeah.
It should be, if it's affecting people, it should be affecting them equally, right? Then
Yeah.
because of this society, I see it every day, because gender roles, these gender roles, yes.
So women
That
tend
is
to pay, yeah, women tend to pay the motherhood or pregnancy tax. And the fact that we have very few legal protections, for example, we don't have a sexual harassment law, which means that it creates an unsafe working environment for women. And we also don't have non-discrimination practices in place. So employers are allowed to ask a woman about their marital status when they apply for a job, and whether, there are a lot of employers would make that decision of like, oh, okay, she's this age, she just got married, she's probably going to leave in X number of years. So you see, it's a cycle, right? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy almost.
Yes, yes, I see, because I've been in few corporations, right? And cases I've seen, sexual harassment is an issue, but then on part of, maybe on the employers, they're just closing one eye to that
Correct.
thing, because
Yeah.
maybe somehow they're looking at mothers, working mothers or women, as something that, I mean, a staff that is easily replaced.
Absolutely.
If we throw this one, we can call in another one. Just like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we also have to look at how industry impact has played a role. Women tend to have jobs, again, even though we outperform men in science and math, we tend to have jobs in arenas that have been disproportionately affected by COVID. For example, education, food, F&B, tourism, accommodation. We tend to be overrepresented in these arenas. So of course, when these things close down because of lockdowns or struggle or have to do layoffs, it's women who are affected disproportionately. There are also more women, I think, not more women, but quite a high number of women, almost the same as men, who run micro enterprises, right? SMEs and smaller. And that's because it allows you, like, not jual kerepe or like do drop ship or that kind of thing. It allows you to conduct business online, but also stay at home, look after your kids. So it's a way to balance the thing. But that means no EPF, no SOXO, no protections, from exactly, no tax breaks, that sort of thing. So we have so you see that kind of thing lah. For example,
So
if you have,
basically,
yeah.
okay, continue.
I was going to say, if you're a woman who runs a gerai in the morning or in the afternoon, and then the rest of the time is looking after your kid at home or cooking and then going out, during the lockdown, you can't do this. So that's a huge loss of income. Yeah. And there's no protection for you. Yeah.
No protection in terms of, because yesterday I just met this one girl. I used to see her in the market, and then this one day I went to this a bakery, and then she said, oh, I cannot open my store already, so I have to come here. But then tomorrow they're gonna announce PKP. What am I gonna do? And I said,
Correct. Yeah.
I cannot advise. Then I just say, be strong.
You can't, yeah. And also because of these SMEs or micro enterprises, they don't benefit from things that larger businesses do, like economies of scale, right? For example, if you're like the makcik kia, as the stereotype is, like selling nasi lemak, you cannot buy in bulk and keep so much in your house. You will buy maybe, sort of, if you use fresh santan, you will buy the day before, 2 days before. If you use the carton santan, you'll keep for a week maybe. You can't do what a large business would do and have suppliers come weekly, that sort of thing. It's money, right?
So in terms of sustainability is an issue.
Correct. And interestingly enough, the labor costs are not commensurate with how much you pay for the nasi lemak, right? Because you're actually getting artisanal sort of, So
yes. That is something that is, we see it every day, but then because the world how we go now, it is a norm for us. But then we don't see the impact on how it is to the person, to the community, society. So next question that we have for you: do you see the challenges faced by working parents, predominantly mothers, have an impact nationally, and what is the ramifications?
Okay, so like I said, there's the setback for 2 years, right? Like we have been set back, women have been set back by about 2 years, right? The progress. And also the World Bank actually estimated that if all economic barriers for women participation, or rather all barriers were removed, including cultural, you would see a growth of about 26% in income per capita, right? Which is quite a, are you okay? Okay,
Oh, okay,
which is
okay.
quite a large amount, right? So yes, there are natural
Mm-hmm.
ramifications to the economy, as well as just gender equality and balance, and of course it trickles down to like the children, right? You should
Mm-hmm.
have to make a choice between being able to bond with your child and also being able to feed your family, which is essentially a
Mm-hmm.
choice a lot of people have to make at this point. And then you have this latchkey kid, and then you see, um, it does trickle down to their performance in school and their nutrition, this sort of thing. And internationally also there are ramifications, because if you're sort of middle, upper, I would say upper middle at this point, there is a reliance on domestic workers. And you see
Mm-hmm.
how this is a cycle, because so that your child can be taken care of, you are taking a mother away from her own family in her own country, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. Yes.
internationally, globally, women have to pay this price, right? And it's actually very heartbreaking when you think about it, because uh, there's another kid out there who is going to be robbed of it. There's just not enough to go around, yeah. In terms of this kind of thing. And also it affects bilateral ties, in that we have very poor standards for domestic workers. We do not give them enough protections legally. There's a lot of human rights violations and issues to do with physical or emotional abuse, non-payment of wages, modern day slavery, and that of course affects our bilateral ties with so many countries. Malaysia is one of the worst offenders, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why we've had issues with the domestic worker supply, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's not just national ramifications. We also have to pay attention to individual states as well. And if we want to come up as a country, every state has to sort of go hand in hand, right? We don't want to leave one state behind, and then you've got like Selangor pulling up everyone's average because it's the richest state. Yeah. So like if
Mm-hmm.
you look at the GDP rate in the country, and this is like from 2019, you can see that opposed to 7.2% nationally, Sabah was at 2.4%, despite it being incredibly wealthy with natural resource, with talent, and you know, and if you look at unemployment rates, the four states that were the worst hit were, or not, four places the worst hit were KL, Labuan, Perlis, and Sabah, right? Which is a huge shame, because you want the whole country to come up together. Yeah, so this is one of those situations where the state and federal have to work closely together to make sure that no one is left behind. You can't completely ignore, like, yeah, the
Yeah,
state.
they have to work hand in hand, because but I can see that with all the statistic we have, each state is getting own benefits, but
Hmm.
then they're saying, okay, we're gonna give everyone the same benefit, but then in actuality it doesn't really, it's not the same lah. But then I really like your point where you say, when we rely on the um domestic labor, then we will be taking a mother away from a child, another child, and then the effect of these working mothers towards the children. Because
Hmm.
I've gone through a few articles. They said, oh, having working mothers could benefit the child and somehow could not benefit the child. uh,
Hmm.
so for you personally, do you think um, working mothers will having a working mother would impact a growth of a children so dramatically? The children will be dramatically impacted having a working mother.
I think it really depends on things like the industry. It depends on how much support the mother gets from other family members. It depends on flexible arrangements with your boss. I mean, if you're a working mother, but you can work from home, yes, it's a huge burden because work is work, but at least your physical presence is there. And of course, it depends on what access the child is, and also socioeconomically. I mean, um, if you are a working mother but you have a huge support system and your child gets the best in, like, I don't know, extracurriculars and that sort of thing, and you're able to come home, completely switch off from work and spend quality time, then great. But that's not often the case amongst the lower middle class or the working class, right? And it also plays a role in things like childcare, right? As in like daycare, yeah? So before your kid gets to go to school, upper middle class can afford to send to a daycare near the house, that kind of thing. But if you look at the statistical divide between rural and urban areas and states, urban areas and more expensive daycares have an emphasis on education. So you send your kid there at like 3 or 4 or whatever. By the time they go to primary 1, they can read and write a little bit, okay? And I know this because my mother runs classes specifically for those who are, you go to school at 7, right? So about 5 to 6, and when they go in, they can like at least write their own name, right? But if you look at more rural areas, it's an emphasis on custodial services. So for example, I'll just take your child, feed them, they take a nap in the afternoon. When you finish work, you take them. And they watch TV, they play game, they hang out with the other kids, which is important for socialization. But there's no developmental or educational element to it, right? And that comes with money. So you see there are we have about 17,000-ish childcare workers in Malaysia, but only about 3,000 have minimum qualifications as required by MOE to do the teaching and all that kind of thing. We need 38-ish, slightly more than 38,000 childcare centers nationally with the proper accreditation, and we only have 7,000. That's a huge gap. And there's even fewer centers for neurodiverse children. So if your child has any learning difficulties or is ADHD or is on the autism spectrum, where do you, that is even more difficult, because then you need the whole household to be involved in taking care, right? Because I know
that is true.
Yeah, I'm sure all of us know parents, mothers of children who are on the autism spectrum, and I know very few who would have access to a daycare that is understanding of these kind of differences or special needs.
Yes, it is. Truthfully, I haven't seen a daycare that is with special needs for children of special needs. I only see the usual daycare, and then the daycare where, I just send the child to makcik sebelah for makcik to jaga. So
which is
that one, yes, I see.
As opposed to education and development.
Then it would affect the child differently, and then this money would probably be an issue. That is the heaviest issue, I think.
Correct.
Impacted on all the others.
I mean, fundamentally, of course, there's nothing wrong per se with custodial in that your kid learns socialization. Of course, these are very important skills, right? But they will obviously, when everyone goes to school, there will be that divide already because of socioeconomic factors, because of class from the start.
Yes, that would be
not a level playing field lah.
Yes. Then they will have to start at different stage, right? And
correct.
that could, the same thing will be again and again and again.
Yeah, it's how the children who always will generally do well in school are those who have access to tuition, access to nutrition, don't have to help their parents with work, with gig economy stuff, right? So yeah.
Yes. So can you tell me more about your research on this, other than what you've mentioned just now? I mean, all the statistics. How do you, why is it that is in your mind that is so interesting? Do you think you have to share?
I think that in terms of my research, I mean, I always want to make policy recommendations to even out this playing field. I mean, and it's interesting because I'm of an age where, as a Malaysian woman, people are already asking, why you're not married, why you're not kids? I'm 31 this year. So already macam considered old a bit lah in Malaysia.
Still young.
I think so, but under Malaysian sort of societal norms, which I mentioned earlier, by 26, 27, people are already so that is one of the reasons why I'm very interested in this. And I think that it's something that women who just joined the workforce should already be lobbying for, because they should look forward. And even if you don't intend to become a mother, you should be lobbying for other women in the workplace who may want to, right? We cannot come up unless all of us come up, as I said before. So my research focuses on policy changes that we can propose and hopefully will be implemented over time. Some of these are daycare centers in offices, which have their own barriers, because there are specific building codes that need to be adhered to. So not every office you can just let out a daycare, which is quite an interesting way to think about it, because I don't know about you, but a lot of us, our offices, like that the fire escape phone, we don't even think about it, right? It's just not a very Malaysian way to think. Like,
Yes, yes. It's just not there. We're not gonna need it
yeah,
probably.
macam the fire extinguisher is used to keep the door open,
That's true.
right? Uh, so there are building code things that have to be adhered to. So the same way we need buildings that are disabled friendly, wheelchair friendly, we should have buildings that allow for daycares to be built in. We need to improve digital infrastructure for women who are in informal sectors in the gig economy, so that it's better, like it's easier for them to start a business, right? I know women who conduct their online business purely through their phone because they cannot afford a tablet or laptop. And as people who are privileged enough to have multiple devices, there are some things where I'm sure you've said, I cannot do it on my phone. I need to do it on my laptop, right? Yeah.
Yes, it's true.
So, yeah. We should look at things like incentivizing corporations, maybe like through tax breaks or rebates and things like that, to provide better situations for working mothers or for women who are on maternity leave or get pregnant, or to allow fathers to take paternity leave, right? In countries like Sweden and Finland, there's something called shared parental leave, which means that you get like X number of days and you can share between the husband and the mother, the father and the mother, who wants to take how many days, right? We should look at anti-discrimination and sexual harassment laws. We should look at changing societal norms, although that will take a very long time, to say that why should it be that women leave the workplace, kan? Why can't the men take care of the kid? Yeah, and we should also we should also be looking at gender diverse funding. Microcredit schemes geared for minority groups, geared for specifically women. So these are all these policy changes that I'm very interested in. I also run this website, which is quite, the feedback has actually been very eye-opening. It's called 50/50 Malaysia, 5050malaysia.com. It's a database of women experts, all right? And it's divided into sectors that anyone, so like if you're in food, if you're in nutrition, if you're in public policy, aviation, that kind of thing. There's actually quite a lot of aviation experts in Malaysia who are women. You sign up and then people can look for you using this website. And it was very eye-opening to see people writing in and going, oh, this is so useful because now we can stop having manuals. Or I didn't know that there were women in ABC field, right? Or I didn't know we had so many women engineers. And it really shows how there is still this mindset that we don't actually fully comprehend the kind of female talent we have in Malaysia. There is still that blind spot. Yeah.
It's still just like, women should not be, I know that women should not do this, so I don't expect them to be there.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is a great initiative.
Correct. These are entrenched gender biases that even sort of learning feminists, like it's always a process. Like myself, Carrie, like when honestly, I did the website during the second MCO with a friend of mine, and it was because I interviewed someone and I found out she was like the head of some aviation agency. And I was like, oh, like, wow, because you don't think about it. When you fly commercial, it's always a male pilot.
Yeah. I always love seeing female pilot. I was like, oh my God, so pretty, the female pilot, every time I see them.
Awesome. Yeah. So I was like, this has got to end. This has got to stop. And then so I used to be a journalist, and a lot of my female journalist friends, we pakat so that every time we do a story, we have to have at least one or two female experts, because it's always the same faces. And you see this especially in academia. This is just me. I may be wrong. This is anecdotal or anecdata. Women tend to publish. Men tend to quote in the media. Right? So women, if you look at just like university websites, like you can see women have far more publications than men, but men are more visible. So it's that thing now of like, and I've interviewed like sort of top of their field kind of thing, like professors, things like that, women, and they've said like, oh, can you call me this time to this time because I have to go and pick up my kids. So I'm like, you're a professor, you teach, you publish, right? You basically run like part of the faculty, but the burden still falls to you. What's your husband doing? Which is very mean, obviously, but it's that question mark, right? Why are we expected to do everything? And if you don't, you're a fan. Yeah, which I'm sure the panelists can talk more as well. I can't speak because, you know, I don't have kids. It would be unfair for me to do that. But like, I think I have cats, but
Yeah, it counts. Yeah,
yeah,
I see how we women themselves, we just carry the burden. We carry whatever society thinks dictates. Society dictates you to be a good mother, dictates you to
mm,
be a good employer, dictates you to carry everything on your shoulder. But then there's
correct,
no support for you. There's no support,
correct.
as you said, policy for like policy of implementation, anti-discrimination, all this childcare. I think this is all something that is needed for to support all these mothers to be working efficiently, effectively, right? Not just gonna say, you're gonna be okay lah, just send your
Yeah,
child to your mother. That is not good for me lah. Personally,
yeah, yeah,
it just doesn't go very well lah. We
yeah.
cannot move forward.
Correct. And it's also creating that cycle of unpaid care. When you send to your mother, it's still unpaid care work upon a woman, you know? Like
Yes, see, you're
I'm
just
sure
transferring
that
your burden to your mother.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm sure someone has done an amount, like I don't know if I have it, on how much unpaid care work costs, but yeah. I wrote here 10 trillion. I think someone did a estimate of how much it is globally if you put money to it. So there you go, right?
Mm. That's a big amount of money. I
Big
can
number,
tell you,
yeah.
if you really put it outside, it's gonna run the economy way.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
just gonna be, yeah, you're not gonna do things for free, but then because you're a mother, there's some
There's the
things you have to do for
expectation. Yeah,
free.
of course, of
Yeah,
course.
expectation, and then there's some things you have to go
Yeah.
back to, what, because some women are leaving the work
Mm,
because money issue. Even though there's money issue, they just, even though we like money, but then I need to focus on my children. Then
yeah,
see, and then
yeah.
it start again.
Mm,
Then the children see the mother, oh, my mother do this, so I should do this. So it's whatever we're doing now, the children's
mm,
gonna be learning from
yeah.
us. It's not gonna stop.
And it
Yes.
also applies to housework, yeah, because that is also that unpaid labor that women do, right? You're
Mm-mm.
also expected in Malaysian society. Many of us still expected to cook for the house, clean the house. In fact, there's this anecdote. I read it in I'm not sure, Slate or The Guardian. I can't remember. It didn't happen here, but this couple rented a home, and there was a soap dispenser near the sink, like when you see in the shop or the hotel, right? And when they moved out a year or two later, apparently the writer said her husband turned to her and said, "Isn't it amazing that in the whole time we stayed there, we never had to refill the soap dispenser?" Because he never did it. He never saw her do it. And he just didn't think of it in that sense. So a
Mhm,
lot of this
mhm,
work
mhm,
women do is
mhm,
unseen. Yeah.
mhm, mhm, mhm. Oh, okay. Wait, we have a question.
Oh,
We have a
okay.
question. Okay, wait, let me check it. Okay. We need to check the question first. I forgot. I was so okay. Immerse with whatever you're saying, especially with regards to policy changes. Okay, what's the question? May I see the question? I cannot see the question. Uh, Wait, Miss Tashni. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Okay, there's a question here. What are some of the lower hanging fruits in policy that we can readily implement to help close the gender gap?
Low hanging fruit. Well, we could pass a sexual harassment law. That's a very big one, and it's been on the table for so long. I think it was supposed to be tabled in Parliament. The bill is supposed to be tabled in Parliament this year, but yeah. So we all
Mm.
know. And then that would be a very good one. I think that this last year they gave a 3,000 ringgit tax break for nurseries and for parents who have to send their kid to nurseries. And I think 800 ringgit voucher if you do it online, something like that. We could continue and scale up these policies. We could, these are low hanging fruit, yeah. And we could increase microcredit schemes and protections for women in informal sectors. I think this could be quite easily implemented through agencies we already have, we just create new schemes or redirect existing schemes to target certain minority groups. I think things like, obviously, the longest or highest hanging fruit would be something like changing cultural and societal mindsets. So low hanging sexual harassment bill, more aid for working mothers in terms of like tax breaks, rebates, and better microcredit schemes for SMEs run by women.
Okay, that is I hope that answered the question. Yeah, because there's some of the things that can be easily implemented. It's just need the political will. We need the political will to change policy.
Yeah.
Then we
But
need
this is
to
a kind
see
of
more
policy
movement coming in.
Correct. This is a kind of policy move that should have bipartisan support. I cannot see either side having an issue with it, right? So
yes, because it should benefit everyone, right?
yeah, and it benefits
So,
the economy, which consistently people are telling us is in bad shape.
Yes, yeah, that is true. So basically, whatever you shared today, Tashni, I think my takeaway point would be the policy. I really think the key is the policy and also the people around surrounding the policy. See, all this policy should be implemented to help these working mothers. If we help these working mothers, then all these minor external excuses or causes could be reduced. We can easily handle the monetary wage gap and then all the sexual harassment things. We can really control it. And I thank you for your sharing for this part. And then we're gonna see how from the policy side, from the HR side on it.
Okay.
See how yes. Then okay, so we've seen what Ms. Tashni shared to us with regards to the policy and how the community, how the employers, dealing with these matters. Because we can see who is the people yang suffering is the mothers. The working mothers is suffering badly. They are how do I say it? They are differently prejudiced by different factors. So maybe I could ask this question to our Mr. Robert Nicholas. Our Mr. Robert is our VP of SERATA. Mr. Robert is a mechanical engineer by trade, and then has been in the business his family has been in the business for 3 generations, and then he's also a social justice fighter lah. Then now may we have Mr. Robert. Okay, so Mr. Robert, on side of this, we're just gonna touch on the issue of discrimination in the hiring process and workplaces because basically Tashni said something about how the employees, all the lacking in the employer side. So on your side, how is your HR point of view on this? Are there any discrimination in hiring mothers presently in Sabah or Malaysia lah, but preferably Malaysia? How do you see?
Thank you, Suri. Hi, everyone, by the way. So in regards to the question, I think it's important to note that this is a two-party process because employers play a very big part in the hiring. So if you don't have employers, obviously, then you don't have working anyone, right? Why a large portion of what's being talked about doesn't always involve employers sometimes baffles me because as we've seen in certain reports over the news, like the various employment federations obviously do not really support measures of extending existing parental leave contracts, or making radical changes to the way, like we in the Employment Act, to change the way like a lot of this works. So one of the important things that's happening in Sabah versus, let's say, other states is the fact that Sabah owns the number of businesses that are privately owned in Sabah ranks among the high 90s. So even small firms, medium firms, even larger firms are all largely independently owned. So based on this ability, like a lot of employers down here tend to make employment decisions based on their own whims and fancies. Sometimes that can be quite advantageous, but oftentimes we see that mothers on a lot of cases down here are largely supported in industry that are family run. We see them hired in clerical roles and largely dumbed down to slightly like non-managerial positions, whereas then you reach into a sudden jump because of class, where the more affluent community tend to be able to hire maids, and thus support mothers going back to managerial roles. As in the case of my own mother, who, when I was growing up, had a maid of her own, and thus was able to work up till the 50th week of her pregnancy. And basically, they rushed her to the hospital from the office. So, a lot of these circumstances are quite common down here in Sabah, where you won't hear of these circumstances in more metropolitan areas such as KL, where because of the design of companies around the main tenets of the Employment Act, they are more strict they are more stringent to rules that favors them, and especially the bottom line. When you talk about hiring processes, like imagine if you're a working mother, or even let's not even talk about working mothers. Let's talk about newlywed parents, right? One of the main considerations in the hiring factor, if I'm a hirer, is to note that if you are a new parent, I have to consider that you will get pregnant in the next year or two, especially anywhere like if you were just newly married. And based on that, I'm more likely to consider that you are not a better candidate than, say, someone who is single. This is definitely a bias that exists in HR. Or the fact that if you're talking about mothers are statistically known to take more days off on the year, more unexpected, unplanned days off during the year. And if I'm doing my let's say periodic review, and your hiring and your days that you show up to the office happen to be marked by black holes that number in the 90s, right? Because you have to take so many days off, then obviously that's going to be a very big black mark, versus, say, someone who is more dedicated to sticking to not just the 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 schedule, but even more so to a 16-hour work week, or even a 15-hour work week in some cases, 15-hour day work day, rather. So the obviously, if I'm hiring, like, these are the two biggest considerations that bars me from hiring someone who is on that frame.
So you're saying that on the side of HR point of view, there is an internalized discrimination that is masked with authority. You're gonna say that? You're gonna say that?
Most
Okay, fair enough.
definitely.
Okay, so coming back to whatever to the point you're saying, that okay, you're just gonna do this, some grounds to consider whether which candidate is better based on their status and based on their status, working mother ka, newlywed ka, then so what do you think this working mother would feel if they're not supported in the work, in the workplace, ataupun going back as a mother, right? Going back after you give birth, then suddenly you're faced with this kind of, because we can see it, I applied for jobs before, and then when I see the HR give me question, I know, oh God, I've seen the discrimination face. You need to lie. Then what do you feel that these mothers would feel if they don't feel supported in this, facing all this stigma? What do you think?
Well, naturally, I think it's fair to say that I don't speak for all mothers. For one, I happen to be a man, so
Okay.
But generally speaking, like it feels quite insulting, especially for mothers, when we live in a society that routinely doesn't look after the young. um, Oftentimes we've told that, you know, the adage follows that it takes a village to raise a child, and a part of that village really is care for working mothers or even newlyweds or anything of the sort, because if you imagine what the metropolitan lifestyle demands of us, right, like between 16-hour work days, as a general example, that sucks up a lot of the personal life that a person may have, you know, um, from what call this from socializing or even building up support systems around a family. If in a lot of my early jobs, even today as it is, I'm working close to, you know, 14 to 15-hour work days, and because of that, the time that I spend at home is largely limited. You know, I imagine mothers which have more gender roles, you know, assigned to them, more I would feel that they would be more panicked, especially given the insurmountable amount of work that they have. You know, like imagine that not only do you have to work, you have to plan breakfast, you have to plan, you know, your child, if you have a child, the potential lunch of a child if they're going to school. You know, you have to think about the dinner works, and it's no easy task. Like considering that you have to think of groceries on the way back and forth, like what is in your fridge. You know, what is, do you have, you know, like the right mix of things that you need to make dinner, you know, to make dinner work. All of these things go into microcosm of your day-to-day life, and if you are working a full day's work, that's not like, even, let's be generous and say if everyone was working 9 hours, which realistically that's that doesn't really happen in a lot of places. You know, then you know, like mothers obviously would feel like really disheartened when you don't have a system where, like, a childcare facility may exist in the same building, or a child, or even like an employer that supports your having to go off, you know, to look after your child. You know, like let's say I have a child that I have send down to school across the road. Obviously the school is going to contact me to go and look after my child in case of any potential issues that requires time out of the office. And if I have to take as we've seen in the time of COVID, right, as Tashni had pointed out earlier, because of this lack of parental issues, mothers are kind of hesitant to go back into the workforce.
Yes, because yes, they are hesitant. Obviously, with all this happening, they would be hesitant to come back. So, as an employer, if you wish to retain or support your working mothers, what do you think that need to be considered in providing policies to support these working mothers as an employer lah?
I think one of the biggest things that, and in regards to also the question that you asked, Dr. Tashisha, one of the low-hanging fruits that we can definitely do is tax reform. It doesn't take the government any, you know, like it doesn't cost the government anything to change the tax breaks that you can put onto companies. All it is really just, you know, they have to consider the amount of money that goes back into the government. So if obviously, and let's be entirely frank here, if I have to put money into social programs, I can definitely take cuts into other areas. The amount that we spend in certain areas, like for example, infrastructure, you know, it would be a drop in the bucket to some of these budgets when it comes to tax breaks for 30-day parental leave, 60-day parental leave. So if now I'm considering like what's happening with a discussion around parental leave for mothers, right? If we're talking about 60 days being extended to 90 days, then one of the biggest concerns as an employer is how do I pay for that time out? There is a decrease. There is a decreased lack of productivity in my office, and as a small medium industry, I do not have redundancy to fill that role, right? I do not have someone who can automatically, you know, replace that person who's going to be away for currently, as it is, 2 months. right? What about if now we're considering the fathers, where because of gender roles, we find more parents, more fathers in the workforce. We find more obviously, naturally, there are more men in higher ranking positions and who represent the workforce more often than not. Even if you're talking about 30-day parental leave, the question automatically becomes, how do I pay for this person's lack of productivity, right? Reduce 30 days lack of productivity, and on top of the fact that, like I'm going to be missing a key personnel, right? So if with a tax break, like as it currently is, because employers have to pay the days off for a working mother, for parental leave, like employers naturally wouldn't want to pay more than they already are. Otherwise, it'd be a free for all. Like, why doesn't my entire staff all just get, like pregnant tomorrow, and then I have to close down the office for a year? That's generally that's generally the equivalence that a lot of people try to make, right?
Yeah,
If the
that would be
government,
how they consider lah.
yeah,
Okay, okay. So because so one of the things that you were saying is you're connecting to Tashni. Basically, you would go for the tax incentive lah, for how to promote employers to be more involved in supporting the working mothers. Is that true?
sorry, repeat the question.
Somehow like that? Oh no, that is basically okay. To sum up, yeah, I'm just saying that you're connecting to Tashni on how the policies, basically you're saying something with regards to the tax incentive
Oh,
to, and
definitely,
then
definitely.
also,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
basically that is something we can relate to. And then okay,
Definitely.
okay, so because we have questions coming from Facebook, so we would channel the whatever question coming in, we will pass to the speakers after we finish with the panelists. Okay, but thank you, Robert, for your insightful opinion on these matters, on the HR point of view, and then also how the employees would be able to support, and how the policy could come into the pictures. Okay, we thank you, and we would now invite our Dr. Noor Azrin. Yes, she's a senior lecturer from UiTM. She has a PhD in applied linguistics, focusing on motherhood identities. Dr. Noor Azrin.
Hi, Assalamualaikum, and good afternoon. It's 5 o'clock. Okay, so let me just, can you see my screen right now?
Yes.
Okay, let me just put it on slide mode. Okay, let me see if I can change it a bit. Okay, all right. So thank you, SERATA, for inviting me to be one of the panelists today. So the title today, Working Moms, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, really captures a part of what I have looked at in my PhD study, actually. And that's one of the reasons I actually agree to be one of the panelists today, because I can foresee how interesting the discussion will be today. All right, so let me just move to the next one. All right, so first of all, let me explain first what my study was about. The title of my PhD study is The Good Mother, the Discursive Construction of Identities Among New Mothers in Malaysia, simply meaning that I looked at how these mothers constructed who they are, how they portray themselves in specific ways through language, through discourses. So I looked at interviews, data, that meaning I interviewed these mothers, and I also looked at the social media posts of these mothers that I have interviewed. So this was a study, a thesis that I submitted in mid-2019. I interviewed these mothers in 2016, actually. Outdated, you may argue, but at least based on my experiences and observations, I would feel that a lot of the findings are still relevant up until today. My study looked at 3 types of mothers, one of which would be working mothers, WM here, okay? The rest would be stay-at-home mothers, working at-home mothers, all right? And the reason I chose to look at these social categories would be because not much research has looked into it, especially from a less dominant perspective society like Malaysia. And these categories are not exclusive, I know, but in general, I would say that these 3 main types of career-related categories are the types of categories that most mothers in Malaysia can relate to. Okay, and a bit of a disclaimer before I share the findings is that my study was carried out from a language and from a discursive perspective. So, and my study was qualitative, no surveys, not a lot of participants were involved, 19 to be exact, 7 of which would be working mothers. So whenever I draw on the findings from my PhD study, the findings actually only represent the mothers with whom I have communicated and whose responses I have actually analyzed. It cannot be, the findings cannot be generalized, okay? So if you're wondering what type of data that I actually analyzed, something that looked like this, okay? But because it's not really the focus of today's talk to look at this line by line, because I'm a discourse analyst. I actually looked at it word by word, line by line, but it's not the focus of today's session. So I'll just share in general what I have found, okay? But just again, a sneak peek of how the social media posts that I analyzed look like. These are the postings of working mothers that I have looked at. I looked at 6 months worth of social media posts, thousands of posts actually. And interestingly, working mothers, although we can't really compare because I looked at very few mothers, but of all the participants that I have, working mothers are the ones who posted a lot of social media posts. Okay, and I do not know the reason. Maybe that's another study that we have to conduct in the future. But first of all, although this study, this discussion today is specifically focusing on working mothers, but I would like to draw the audience's attention today first to the similarities between working mothers and other types of mothers based on my findings. So despite the differences in their career relations, my data actually revealed that all of them are juggling in many similar ways. All of them highlighted their struggles, okay? And they drew on a lot of opposing and intersecting discourses. The most common would be like judgments from other mothers, judgment from other non-mothers, for example, other people, the guilt, the juggling of tasks, and many more, okay? And they usually portray themselves in parental, gender-specific, and evaluative ways, simply meaning that they usually position themselves as different types of good or bad mothers. So the good or bad is the evaluative part, okay? So it's quite, they just can't, it's just indispensable, I guess, in the way they construct themselves as what type of mothers. They always try to relate whether they are good or bad. That's what it means, basically. Okay, so there's always a tendency to compare, which means that they will always tend to describe themselves in relation to other types of mothers. If they are working mothers, they are comparing themselves to stay-at-home mothers. So this shows how important career-related category is actually in a mother's life today. And I also noticed that the mothers sometimes actively and also sometimes unintentionally sometimes resist, contest, and subvert notions of good parenthood every day. And without realizing, probably they are directly and indirectly powerfully shaping the ways, the beliefs, the ideals of good motherhood in the society. They are produced and reproduced every day, especially through the powerful medium of social media. Okay, so of course there are some unique findings as well that are specific to working mothers. So I realized from my data at least that there are more intersecting, there are more contradictory discourses when it comes to the responses of working mothers, okay? And maybe it's just the nature of this type of mother because they cannot be present physically with their children as much as stay-at-home mothers. I mean, we're talking this is a 2016 data, pre-COVID time, okay? So now it's even more complicated, okay? And there is more explicit mention of their struggles related to the work-life balance.
Dr.
Okay.
Azrin?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt for a word, but we cannot see your presentation. Yes.
Oh, you cannot. Let me stop sharing and share again. You have not been able to view it from the beginning.
We have actually, sorry, but it's just that the presenter slide is showing, so your notes are showing. So it's actually making the presentation itself smaller.
Oh, all right, okay.
Yeah, so we can see your notes as well.
I see. Wait,
Okay, it's all right. Take your time.
I need to stop the presentation. Let me just see. I think I have to click this again. I think this is okay now. Yeah. Wait a second. Yeah, I have to click share again. All right, you can see it now, right? So I think I will not use the, what do you call that? Presenter view. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So, but yeah, how do, because your, wait, the display pictures of us, the presenters today, are covering the words. Okay. So where was I? I think this was it, right? So a lot of working mothers drew on the discourse of guilt as well, all right? And they were and I remember there's one participant who actually explicitly mentioned in the interview that she was upset with the focus that is said to be more on the stay-at-home mom struggles rather than on working mothers, okay? And some of them, like, it depends on who I actually talk to. So like, this particular working mother, she felt that she was, the working mother would be the marginalized group of mother, according to career-related category. Whereas when I talk to some of the stay-at-home mothers, they would say that they are the marginalized ones. So it really depends on the network. Like in my network, because I'm a working mother, most of my friends would be working mothers. And if suddenly there is one stay-at-home mother, then that particular person, if we are talking to that person, she would probably construct herself as the marginalized group, someone who's misrepresented or less heard. Okay, and also, but there's the same mother actually said that she believed that she can provide the best of both worlds by becoming a working mother. So that's the positive side of it. It's not all negative, not all just challenges. So she believed that she could be a good mother, just like a stay-at-home mother. Okay, so I always put it in inverted commas because it's just a subjective adjective. We don't really know what actually makes a good mother. All right, so since I actually look at different textual platforms, meaning I looked at both interviews and social media, so there are some unique findings depending on what they are actually, the responses that they actually produce in social media as well as in the interview. Yeah, so it's interesting, at least from my findings, because I could look at both platforms. I could see the unique ways that they construct the ways they constructed who they are, okay, and the identities that they constructed in the two textual contexts can be different. So, for example, in the interviews, I noticed that the participants were more earnest, more direct in their sharing. Okay. So, for example, if there are stay-at-home mothers and they feel that stay-at-home mothers actually are better mothers than other types of mothers, they would just say it. And probably it's because of my, it's just one-to-one private interview. And I did not really belong to any of these categories then because I was just a PhD student, and probably they felt more. They don't feel that they have to like jaga hati. They don't feel that
they have to filter. They don't.
So, but on social media, I can see that they are more diplomatic. They wouldn't say those things. They would like implicitly say that yeah, they construct themselves as good mothers, but implicitly, for example, by sharing what they have cooked, what they have done for their kids. But usually it's more diplomatic, probably because there are more friends, more audience, more viewers on social media, and they don't want to hurt their friends' feelings, for example. Next, yeah, I have to like move the cursor because I cannot see the words on the screen. Okay, so there's also this unique intersections between the discourses of good motherhood and certain discourses such as ethnicity and religion, something that is more unique for the Malaysian participants. It's not something that is commonly found in other existing research in dominant society like Australasian, American, European research. So, and it's most common, most obvious when I actually talk to and analyze the social media posts of Muslim mothers. They are usually more explicit in indexing their Muslim identity. It could be something as simple as saying Alhamdulillah and all, but basically things even as simple as that would say that, for example, they are showing what they have done with their kids and all, and they say Alhamdulillah. Basically, they are all like saying that all of this is they are just referring to God. It's all God's work. It's not theirs. So it actually also shows a lot of things about the way they constructed who they are as good mothers or not. And there are also mothers who challenge the demarcations between all types of mothers. And that's the interesting bit because there's also a participant who highlighted that a good mother is a happy mother who is fully engaged with the children at home, regardless of her career decision. So I think I quite like that, okay? And also there's this interesting social media post. Oh, sorry, this one on the right. This is what I mean by just now. Oh, sorry, about the explicit, drawing on the religious discourses when they talk about good mother, who actually posted it, but she's actually a work-at-home mother. But she says that all moms are actually working moms. Okay, and from this post, it's quite long, and we're not going to read it. But basically, we can see here some intersecting discourses: the discourses of good motherhood, discourses of career relation, discourses of religion as well. Because you can see here that she's referring to a hadith, Bukhari Muslim, and also drawing on the Western quotation by Courtney Patterson. So these are the things that I actually looked at. And I believe these things, one of the reasons I actually did the study is because we should not ignore all this, although they seem like just social media posts, okay? And when we talk to mothers every day, we might just think that's just any talk, but it can, these talks, these responses can reveal a lot of things about beliefs about motherhood, about the society and all. And also about some other things that are more, for example, like the traditional roles between men and women and all, okay? So summary of findings. So basically most of the mothers actually drew on the discourses of judgments and career relations, and they would usually explicitly portray themselves and their ideas of good motherhood in relation to the specific career positions, so no matter whether they are working or not. And these career role identities are not static and exclusive, because one mother can actually assume many types of categories, and what we see today during the pandemic, it's much more relevant today of how fluid these categories are. And in terms of language, I think I wouldn't talk much about that, but basically because, yeah, it's done from a discursive perspective, all those things that we have never actually probably noticed, like the use of pronouns, the use of questions, these things actually could also suggest a lot of things about motherhood beliefs that are important to be considered when we come up with policies, when the government wants to improve the lives of mothers. And it's also interesting too that the identities of the mother as the female parent, as the main parent, as the only parent are actually pervasive across the data from all types of mothers. And there is also this implicit construction of marginalized identities when they feel that they are not heard enough, if they are misrepresented, and if they feel like they are a minority type of mother, basically that. So I think I end my my presentation there. Any questions?
Okay, so that is a very interesting. I caught it when you said who is marginalized. It depends on who you were talking to. So for the working mother, they
Yeah.
say they are not, they are being deprived of. And when you are asking the stay-at-home mother, then they do think they're being marginalized also. So I just want to redirect on the working mothers, because uh, basically we are just saying that, what do you think of some findings that choose to laser focus on the working mom shortcoming in the workplace instead of focusing on the shortcoming of the outdated policies, employers, or lack of supporting facilities? Basically, for the working mothers.
Mm.
Yeah. How do I?
Specific
Let me
working
rephrase that.
yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Yes, working mothers, because you're a
Um,
working mother yourself, right?
yes.
Yeah.
I think it's just an easy way out. It's just easier to blame mothers and to just ignore everything else. And basically, yeah, because it's when we blame just one gender and not focusing on other things, we are trying to avoid some awkward discussions, more paperwork, more changes in policy, and these things, the direction towards fairness and equality in terms of workload, pay, childcare facilities, and all, they take time and a lot of effort, and may create some possible dissatisfaction among employees. So it's just the easy way out if we are just like blaming mothers. And I think in Malaysia, we have seen many instances that we simply try to avoid awkward but important issues. We just try not to discuss these things. And because when we focus on policies and all, basically everyone is involved, and it seems to be a societal problem, but not everyone feels that they are responsible for it. Okay, and they feel that if the mothers choose to work, choose to have children, then it should be them who should bear the burden and should actually find the solutions themselves. So I think it's just an easy way out. So it's time, I think, that we educate our societies that in many cases these days, it's not necessarily the women's choice to work. Sometimes they just need to. And it's also may not be the women's choice to have children, okay? But yeah, it's God's work sometimes, yeah. So it's a necessity for the betterment of the family institution as well as for the community development that we educate the society about this. And yeah, we have seen in many societies too that do not place much importance on working mothers. They are even in the US, right? So it could really affect their mental well-being, yeah, their emotional, mental health and all. I'm sorry, my internet connection is not quite stable. I'm not sure if you could listen to me well.
It's clear on my side. Okay, I thank
Yeah.
you,
All
Dr.
right.
Nur Azrin, for your finding on your for your finding and all your presentation. I think we can see the similarities, and then it is true that all mothers is working mothers. Yes, you, even whether you stay at
You
home
agree with
or
that
you.
statement?
Yeah, I agree. Oh, because they are basically, my mom is also working right now, preparing me food. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but thank
Yeah.
you
Basically,
for your
mothers
insight.
should not feel guilty, yeah, for whatever that they choose, whether to work or not. They should not feel guilty for their career decisions.
Yes, but true, because mothers is also human first, then mothers. Yeah, that is from my point of view. Okay, thank you, Mr.
Yeah.
Dr. Nur Azrin. So we're gonna pass the floor to uh, Miss Feli Edwin. Okay, Miss Feli Edwin is a full-time working mother, um, working within an MNC based in Kota Kinabalu. Okay, so Miss
Yeah, I'm here.
Miss Feli, hi. Okay.
Hi.
Hi. So I have a question for you. As a full-time working mother, how are you navigating through your work and life, being, need to go to work, and also taking care of your children, 3 children. Yes. So how do you balance it? How do you do you?
Thank you, Mazuri, for the questions. First of all, I want to thank SERATA for inviting me to be one of the panelists for today's event, Mother's Day special. It's an interesting topic and it's relatable for me and for all the working mothers out there. And when Sabrina approached me, I think I know why, because I actually meet the criteria of the potential disastrous motherhood. I will explain later why. So back to your questions, how I actually navigate my life and my work as a full-time working mom and raising my 3 kids. Well, my experience today, today I'm going to share my experience based on my real experiences. And then I don't have any technical data to show, and it's not about academic at all. So it is my real experience as a working mother. Well, motherhood it's very tough, right? It's really, really tough, especially, like when you're working for MNC, your workload is quite dynamic and your job is demanding. Like there are times where the workload is bearable, and there are times it's a bit overwhelming. And on top of that, actually my husband, he is a commuting husband. We only see him like every 2 weeks, and he only spends time with us during the weekend. But this is before the pandemic. So basically I am wearing both the mommy hat and also the daddy hat. So how I navigate through balancing work and life is just, for me, it's just daily. It's a daily intervention. If I wake up in the morning, I just ask myself like what I want to accomplish for today. Like, you see, if let's say with my dynamic, demanding job, and then with a husband who is always not around, if you have a fixed schedule, what do you think if let's say things doesn't really go according to how you planned it? It's basically a disaster, right? So for me, I cannot have a fixed schedule. So I take each day as it comes. I don't want to worry about what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen, next month, next year. Like during this pandemic, this is like a very good example. Like before the pandemic, yes, I can have like almost a routine activities, like wake up in the morning, send my kids to school, go to work, and all that. But pandemic, when pandemic hits us in when MCO was announced by our Prime Minister back in March 2020, it's like it's not a normal thing anymore. We are forced to the new norms, right? And it's like a jigsaw puzzle. Just imagine a jigsaw puzzle being disassembled and then taken apart and shuffled. So if let's say you look at all the pieces at one go, you definitely you're not gonna solve the jigsaw puzzle, right? So what you need to do is you need to take piece by piece, and you start at the edge of the jigsaw puzzle, and then you start from the edge and then towards the middle, and then you resolve the whole jigsaw puzzle. So it's like that. You have to take one. That's what works for me lah. You take one thing at a time, and on top of that, because my schedule is very fluid, right? So the best thing that I can do is be present, focus on what you are doing at that moment of time. For example, like when I'm doing my work, right, I try to reduce distractions. Like I try to, even like my phone, when people start calling, when I receive calls and all that, if it's not emergency, I have to prioritize my work. I just have to like, okay, I handle this later. Because if the moment your focus is disturbed, right, and then you handle other things and then you come back to your work, it takes you at least 10 minutes for you to refresh. Like where did you, where was the, yeah, where were you? So you at the end of the day, you become less productive. So when I'm doing my work, I will try to focus and just finish as fast as I can. I fulfill my 8 hours responsibility as an employee, and then after that, I will spend time with my kids. And when I am with my kids, I will try to be fully engaged with them, communicate with them, interact with them, because this is one of the the struggles of a working mother. They will always be imposed on this, you know, like you should be staying at home and all that. But I think rather than talking about the quantity of time you have with your kids, you should look into the quality, the time quality that you have with the kids. Like for me, as long as my kids are happy, they are healthy, then you know I'm a happy working mother. And on top of that, I think it's very important that we have a support system, and we shouldn't be shy to ask for help. And well, I do that. Like if I need help, I will ask for help. And finally, I think working mothers, you have to take care of yourself. I mean, mental health is so important. So yeah, we really have to put premium priority to your mental health, you know. And at the end of the day, yeah, I know motherhood is really hard, but what keeps me going every day is actually feeling grateful. That's so that works for me lah, basically.
So because just now you mentioned the word support. So as a working mother, do you feel that you are supported by your employers policy, or in your workplace? Do you feel supported, or do you feel overlooked as a working mother?
Well, I am very fortunate to be working for a company who is quite very open about working mothers. We even I came from an oil and gas industry, right? So even though it's a male dominated industry, but they actually encourage women participation. There is no discrimination against women, and and then the organization, they actually try to introduce. I mean, they put some efforts to ensure that the company appreciate the diversity and the inclusive. We have to be inclusive also, right? At the same time, because like you said, human first, mother second. So I'm very happy that I'm in a company who takes care of the working mothers. Yeah.
That is very good, because we cannot find this kind of company everywhere. I've seen companies where they said, you wanna give birth, okay lah, then we're just gonna give you notice for 2 months. We're not gonna give you maternity leave. Yeah, I've been going through this scenario all over again. I just cannot accept the reality of certain company. You are very lucky to be in your current company, and I understand your employers, your business is very demanding, right? Just now you were saying. So how do you think it is your work affecting you? Do you think your work is affecting your mental health as a mother? How is your mental health with your demanding work, and then also your life as a mother? Yes.
To be honest, before pandemic, I think I had like a breakdown when after having my third child, like because I was so used to having only 2 kids, but when the third child comes, right, I had this mental breakdown, like how am I gonna handle, like when I had my 2 kids, it was already so difficult because basically my work at that time requires sometimes you have to work at night. It's like a 20, because it's operation, right? So it's operation runs 24 hours, production runs 24 hours. So I was really, really nervous, but I am really grateful that I do have a very good support system. Like my husband has been really understanding. He understands that when it comes to parenting, it requires both to actually do it together, be involved in the process of raising kids. So and during the pandemic itself, right, with everyone is adjusting. My boss is adjusting, my colleagues they are all adjusting. I had a few episodes of anxiety attack, and before I had this anxiety attack, I never understood how anxiety feels like. I thought like it's just like you feel tired and you just need more rest. No, it's different. So that actually kind of like opened up my mind about mental health. It's really, really important to, to actually take care of our mental health. So since everyone is suggesting at that time, you you tend to be overlooked. You will feel overlooked because everyone is trying to adjust. So we were all struggling together, but the only thing that we can do is we just try to support each other. And then I'm happy that my managers, my senior managers, they were like quite engaging when it comes to how are we going through during this pandemic. And yeah, after a year, it feels like I'm actually loving my working from home situation right now.
Yes, I
Did I
think
answer?
whatever because going to a a company that fully supports you, and then even though what you're saying, you're having anxiety, and everyone was trying very hard to push forward. And what for you, what is your wish moving forward from this situation, from whatever support you have now with COVID? Do you think that you as a working mother, or working mother in general, would require more support? So how do you look at this issue forward?
Okay, well, what is my wishes moving forward? Okay, working mothers, right? It is an epitome of modern womanhood. Before this, right, when people talk about womanhood, the only thing that can define womanhood is feminine, tender, motherly. But womanhood can be so much more than that. Working mothers, they are, what do you call that? They are independent. They are empowered because you see they contribute to the additional incomes to the family, right? And they also improve the standard of living for the family. So these two things, it actually constitute to the essential upgrade of a family, especially from those lower socioeconomic background, right? So how can we help working mothers, especially struggling working mothers and those who are from the lower socioeconomic background? For me, okay, the first thing is about gender sensitivity. The role conflict of a parent caring for the kids. All this while, it was always, the mother. The mother should be the one who has to stay at home, take care of the kids like 24/7. But how about the father, right? That is the argument we had earlier on. And I think at individual level, this has to be addressed. This has to be cultivated. We have to give awareness to everyone that there shouldn't be any gender sensitivity when it comes to childcare, or caring for your child, the process of raising your kids. And at a social level, or probably at the NGO level, government level, probably we should have more of a support group. I remember I joined the support group, which is also organized by SERATA back in 2019, Positive Parenting Workshop. And it's actually really good. So if we have more of that, because you see most mothers, right, they react according to, they react to a situation according to what they know. We judge mothers who punish their kids with by caning them, like hitting them, like pinching them and all that, but that is what they know. How about we? Yeah, we also, like try, instead of judging the mothers, we should give them more education. So this is one of the things that I think probably at social level we can do something about. And at the, I think awareness is also very important, because like I mentioned earlier about the role conflict. I think we need to give awareness to the society. You can start from school itself, like giving educations to our younger generation, saying that men and women are the same. They should be given equal opportunities. Equal access to opportunities and benefits. When we talk about equality, it's not about do men and women role are identical. It's not that. It's like it's more like opportunities, like career opportunities and all that. So it's actually it's right now. I know we have started with it. I mean, just now we were discussing about the low-hanging fruit, where right now we have the in the taxation tax reforms, right? We have this a relief for childcare, and then we also have relief for breastfeeding equipments. That is actually a good start, but we can put more effort into helping the working mothers, support the working mothers, so they also know that they can contribute to the society.
Yes. I see where you're coming from, Miss Kelly. So maybe we can ask our Miss Juni, our director of One Ifra. Miss Juni.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Well, One If I just very quickly is the World Association of News Publishers. I'm really not here today to speak on behalf of the association, but rather to share my experiences also as a former journalist like Tasni, and also maybe provide some personal experiences and examples as to perhaps what companies, employers, even colleagues, of course, spouses and so on can help in this area. So we've heard a lot from our previous few speakers as well, and there's some really great ideas. I think for me personally, as someone who was working in a very busy newsroom, I was 15 years at Channel News Asia, and as you know, as a journalist, it's very hectic. We're putting out news every 1 hour. On top of the hour, we're running a news bulletin and so on. Of course, there are different types of roles for journalists. Sometimes there are journalists who go out into the field. There are also journalists who, of course, work in the newsroom itself, and increasingly, as newsrooms evolve, there's more and more newsrooms. Now everything is digital. There are more journalists actually in the newsroom producing the news for the various digital platforms and services. So I think for me, I like to talk about job redesign and maybe urge. It's not just the media I think has a lot of flexibility in the roles that we have, and I'll elaborate on that. But I think the general message is to employers especially to consider redesigning jobs to afford that sort of flexibility and practicality in working arrangements. I'll just give you a few examples, at least from my own career. I worked at Channel News Asia. It's a TV station, so we basically are 24 hours, and we're running programming around the clock. So this means that there are jobs that actually start at all times of the day. There are jobs that start at office hours, 9 a.m., 10 a.m. There are jobs that start 2 p.m., 3 p.m. In the time when I was working there, I had colleagues who come in at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And we used to call it the mummies shift. It was quite popular with the mothers actually. They would sleep early like their young kids, and they would wake up, maybe at 1 a.m. To go to work. And then they would be done by 12 noon and can go and pick up their children and then spend the whole afternoon with them. So for them, there's quality time with their families, and they're able to juggle. And likewise, even in newspapers, I think these sort of jobs would be possible as well. So if there are, and in this day and age with so many companies working internationally, people are working across time zones. I know there are people, I live in Singapore. I was born in Petaling Jaya actually, so very fond memories of my growing up in Malaysia. But the people even in Singapore are working, or in Malaysia as well, working with US markets, for example, with European markets. So they are really on different time zones. It is possible to redesign certain jobs to fit and not expect everybody to start, say, at 9 a.m. and go home at 6 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m., and so on. I think in this day and age as well, with COVID around, there's also a call to stagger working hours so that not everybody is rushing for the bus or the train or the taxis at the same time. And so this is, if there's any silver lining to come out of COVID, perhaps it is this opportunity now to say, look, we can actually get the job done with with digital tools, with flexible working arrangements, with people working from home. Not everyone can work from home. I totally understand that. Some people don't have the luxury of, say, a study where they can operate. Everyone is crammed into the same room, or everyone's sitting around the dining table trying to do a work call, for example. Those sort of things don't always work out. But if it's possible, of course, they can work from home. They're happy looking after their kids, at the same time keeping an eye on them. So job redesign is something I would suggest that companies look at, because it is possible to actually, with just some creativity, I think, and some tweaking, it can be done. For example, during H1N1, you know, the H1N1 breakup in 2009, I was pregnant with my second child, and the office said, look, it's, you know, it was of course nothing as bad as COVID, but office said, you know, maybe you want to work at home. And I was like, oh, but I'm going to, you know, I need to be in the office. I felt like it was, no, you work at home, you're expecting a child. But I ran the whole newscast from my desk, from my study, the news. I could rearrange stories, and the press release comes in on the latest number of cases. And the press releases kept getting later and later and later. So our main news bulletin was 10 p.m. And sometimes they'll come in after 10 p.m. But I can still put them in. I can still type in the numbers for the day and put it out straight away, just alert the newscaster to say, oh, okay, the numbers are in from the Ministry of Health. Okay, and then, like half a minute later, she's reading them out on air. So all these things are possible now with technology, and I think really I would call on people to relook at the various roles to provide flexibility to their employees. The bigger picture is this: if HR policies and work arrangements are flexible, employees are happier. Employees are happier, they will stay in their jobs longer, they'll be more loyal and grateful to their employers as well. So this sort of loyalty is very hard to build, and of course, as an employer, employers are of course always thinking about costs and who to hire, how to hire. But think about it, because in the long term, if you have a loyal employee who has lots of experience, you've spent years investing in them anyway, training them, and if you keep them on it, because of these little tweaks, it makes for a much happier, much more satisfied workforce as well. Another example I had when I was working at the TV station, there was an old wardrobe department. So, and the wardrobe unit moved to another part of the building. So they had these cubicles there was space, and there was a toilet there next door. They had some small renovations. So they created from the dressing room, because it was the wardrobe department, the dressing room where the stars used to change, they converted into 2 dressing rooms with curtains. They just put in power sockets. People could bring their pumps. They put in a fridge. They bought a fridge, put a chair there, and then there were these 2 nursing rooms. Gave the mummies the key, the mummies who needed it, and it was adjoining a toilet. They broke the wall down, and it was a nursing room, and it was a small tweak like this, just a repurposing of an existing space, makes it so much more possible for my mums to go back to work immediately after their maternity leave. Talking about maternity leave in Singapore, the government's always been encouraging people to have children. There are not enough children. We're barely replacing ourselves. So they have extended, maternity leave to paid maternity leave to 4 months. For the first 2 children, it is paid by the employer for the first 2 months, and then the government pays for the next 2 months. If you have 3rd and 4th children, the government pays for all 16 weeks of the maternity leave. There's also paid childcare leave for 6 days in a year. And on top of that, you can also apply to take 6 unpaid leaves of infant care if your child is under 2 years old. And fathers can get 2 weeks paternity leave. That was, I think, something that was introduced after my kids were all grown up. But my daughter older one is now 15 years old. The smaller one is coming to 12. So, but I didn't get to enjoy those those benefits. But I think in those sort of flexible working arrangements, I think that there can be a lot gained from it. The other thing that we also, now in my current job, after seeing the struggles of so many mothers in the workplace, or returning to the workplace as well, is we've been quite fortunate because Google is one of our partners that we work with as an industry association. And they came forward as part of something that they believe, about in increasing inclusion, diversity, and equity in the workplace. They're very much in support of working parents. So how to make it easy for people who are returning to work after, say, parental leave, child leave, looking after an elderly parent, and so on. We've actually designed a program with them to help support people who have actually taken an extended career break. So this is like an industry primer and a refresher for those who have been away from the workplace for a year, 2 years, or whatever length of time. In the media industry, things change so quickly. So we've designed a program to help jumpstart their return to the office as well. And with the media, as you know, things just move so fast in terms of technology, in terms of knowledge, in terms of tools and everything. So what we've done is we've created a leadership program, because very often people who have taken a break, they come back maybe after a few years. They're older and they're more mature, obviously, and of course you've learned a lot of skills while you're back at home dealing, playing mind games with your children and psychoing them to cooperate, and you've learned all those kind of skills, sort of emotionally, and you're very mature. However, of course, sometimes it can be a bit intimidating coming back to a changed workplace where you're not familiar with the tools and the workflows anymore. So we designed this program together with a leadership coach as well, who's also had many years in the media industry, for us to have a layer of career and leadership development to prepare them as leaders, because obviously coming back, they would be to try and give them that leg up as well, together with their colleagues who haven't had any loss of time in the workplace, as well as introductory modules also on digital skills, for example, reader revenue, data, and how to engage audiences, and mobile storytelling, and so on. So this combination of how to be a more confident leader, how to be a more organized leader, how to manage not just your subordinates but your own manager, and be a confident leader, is being put in. It's actually running right now, and we're in the middle of it. So that's been another thing that we've been working on as well. And this is something that even I would encourage any company to invest in, because obviously coming back to work for a lot of people can be quite harrowing, and of course there's so many changes at the home front. You've got to make a lot of adjustments. Children have to make adjustments. The parents have to make adjustments. Coming back to work, of course, dealing with colleagues again, it's a different kettle of fish. So any kind of industry program doesn't, of course, mine is media, but it could be for anything, shipping, aviation, hospitality, tourism, whatever. It would be also, of course, incredibly relevant as well. And I think, HR policies generally, I think this is two ways. You work with HR, but HR can't be left to do everything, because the feedback, it has to be two ways as well. So folks, if you're not in HR, that's fine, but maybe try and have this dialogue with your HR department to encourage and say, look, maybe we can tweak this, maybe we can allow flexible arrangements, flexible times, and so on, so that our staff will be able to we can adjust to their working and their environment and the situation and families and so on. I think there's a lot to learn from other countries as well. Other countries have childcare. Where I worked at the station, there was a childcare center actually, which used to be run by the station, and then after that they outsourced it to a childcare company, kindergarten or childcare vendor. So again, I know space is a constraint. Tashini just now mentioned about regulations and all that, but if you can find a space within the organization, our organization was very big. It was, I think, 3,000 staff, so it has a substantial number of people, and therefore there's a demand for such childcare services. So I think those are some of the ideas, and I echo Feli's point about self-care. I think that's very important. It's easy to forget as busy parents as well. But just take some time out for yourself, because if you can't function, then everything else around you suffers, including your family as well.
Yeah. Sure, I understand. That is a very compact and I think informative from you, Junie. I get it. I think job redesigning is something that is a foreign concept for some of the employers. I'm gonna talk to my boss about this one. And then also with the little tweaks and the loyalty, yes, it makes sense. I like it very much. Yes, thank you for your, and also with information on the Singaporean protection for the maternity. Yes, maybe Malaysia should learn some of that. We would need more than 2 months or 3 months of the maternity leave and also paid leave. Yes, because somehow working mothers are being deprived of this. It is not visible, but it's happening. Especially
actually in Singapore, some of the leave, I took mine as all 4 months at one go, because at that point in time I was teaching at the university. It was easier for me to just take the whole semester off. And then come back for a new semester. But for some people, and I think government also, Singapore government recognizes this, it's not possible for some people to take 4 months off, of a job. So what they've done is they've made, I believe it's the last, my memory, fails me now, but it takes, I think, the last 2 months or last 1 month flexibly, so that you can adjust and say, maybe I take 1 day off a week. And I think for a mom who's coming out of maternity leave, it's also a way to say, okay, you work maybe 3 days, 4 days, and then you take 1 day. So you can stretch, that way you can actually stretch your maternity leave much longer, because you can work a few days a week.
Okay, I understand. Thank you, Junib. That is very insightful. So we have 2 questions from Facebook. Okay, 2 questions from Facebook. The first one is, how does Malaysia fare against ultra-conservative patriarchal societies like Japan when it comes to parental leave? I think this question was pointed to Robert. So, Mr. Robert.
Well, don't be shy, everyone. But just in case everyone wants to chime in, go ahead, please. Okay, so the question was like Malaysian faring against ultra-conservative societies. The funny thing about this is that, again, going back to what I was saying earlier about how it takes a village to raise a child. If I believe there was a study done, I don't remember the exact date, but not too long ago, about the social distance of families in structure. So in organizational structure, we believe that Japan, for example, has a type C organizational structure, which is really what it means is that on hierarchy-wise, the top always looks after the bottom. And because they believe that the staff kind of like build the company. So in lieu of that, Japan organizationally always provides everything for the staff, but they demand that the staff give their souls in return. And they work like generally staff in Japan, like they dedicate their entire life to the soul of the company. That has been changing, I might add, that has been changing in recent years. Japan has been looking towards, especially Tokyo, right? Because a lot of the corporations are based in and around metropolitan areas like Tokyo and Osaka. They've been focusing more towards an American-style management in terms of organization, where you don't see as much of top tier to bottom tier looking after in terms of insurance issues or even like coverage costs. Traditionally in Japan, you would have, corporations almost look after like the entire family. When the parent starts working for a company, all the health, all the external costs, even entertainment to a certain extent is covered by the company. Whereas in Malaysia, where we pride ourselves on a lot of family building, unfortunately, it's that Malaysia tends to only think of the mother when it comes to family building. This is especially true in our women's ministers. And if you look behind the history of our women's ministry, they've all been women at the helm, which is, as much credit as I give towards that, it's not always that straightforward in terms of family building. So Malaysia, as a simple fact, Malaysia only offers 2 months as a mandatory parental leave to mothers, right? That is payable by the employer. Japan offers 14 weeks as of currently to mothers, that is payable by insurance, by a governmental insurance scheme. However, a recent change was announced earlier this year in January, I believe, where fathers will now be allowed to take parental leave for up to between 4 to 8 weeks, and they will be paid 67% of their existing wage, right? That is paid under the insurance scheme that they also again are party to. This is akin to having SOCSO pay our bills lah. If we were ever in leave. This is exactly the kind of tax reform that I'm talking about. Like if the government, we already pay for SOCSO. If the government simply like mandated that
That
there's a certain percentage of it that is covered by SOXO or covered by tax, then employers would be readily say, okay, sure, you know, you're taking care of my bills.
Okay, okay. Thank you for the answer, Robert. So now we have a question for Dr. Noor Azrin. Dr. Noor Azrin. So the question would be, how to get mothers more honest and vocal about their struggles on social media instead of putting a front that everything is great. So how to get more mothers to be more honest? Yes. What in your opinion?
Yeah, in my opinion, this is a difficult question, but very relevant, especially now during the pandemic. Yeah, I would imagine someone who just got married and just become a mother. It could just be you, your husband, and the baby, and you can't go and meet up other people, and you just have your social media to probably run and share anything about your new baby or new journey. And some people, probably because they have seen other mothers, they just share the positive experiences of their motherhood, and they are actually experiencing some struggles that they don't want to share it. Probably they feel that, why am I different than others? And that's why I think doing a research like what I did is important, because when I talk to these mothers, they shared how relieved they feel actually when they shared their struggles, and how much that the support, the comments that people leave could actually help them to feel better when they face some challenges. And of course, some people, they go to social media to get some support, and instead they get some judgments. Okay, so probably some practical advice would be to really filter your own social network to make sure that you don't like have followers, not too many followers, people that you don't know, random people, so that you have a more close-knit account of where you can actually post more honest and more, the realities of your daily motherhood journey. That should help you to get more support. And probably a lot of mothers also express how much that when they share their struggles on social media, they get some practical advice as to what to do when their kids are having some health problems, for example, and all. And it's really important. And of course, like what Ms. Tashini said, the most difficult thing to do is to change the mindset of people, right? So it should also start from education as well, of course, because in the media, in what we have learned all these days, we have always been told that mothers are like, they shouldn't just know how to mother. They should just know that, it should come naturally to them. And for most mothers I know, it's not really. They usually face a lot of struggles, and we should change that mindset. And social media should be the place where we could actually change this beliefs that motherhood is all easy, and it should just, everything, the struggles, it's really important. And for those who have become mothers, you have the responsibility as well to say how important it is that you share all your struggles as well for your own mental and emotional health.
Actually, in view of that, can I just jump in on that for a minute?
Yes.
So it's funny that you say that, because I do have a fairly quick question. It's long, but rather, considering that in this current day and age, right, we see more dual parents, right, rather than single, like either involved mothers only or involved fathers only. More and more we're seeing partners on both sides, and especially in social media, we've even seen like ads where there was this famous ad by John Legend, and that they showed the fathers changing nappies, basically trying to get fathers more vested into parenting. Do you think that, based on your research, right, that there is definitely an age sort of like chasm, where because younger parents tend to be more involved on both sides, and older parents tend to be more like, obviously, like as a young parent, right, you would go into a lot of situations where they expect, like for example, a school, and they expect to talk to the mother only, right? Whereas if I'm a father and they're always referring to the mother as the default parent, it kind of like shakes up that confidence a little bit. You know what I mean? Do you think that generationally that we can address this? You know,
Yeah.
like do you see the your research changing that based on this generational change?
Yeah, somehow I feel that I have that responsibility too, because in my PhD study, I could not reveal all of the findings that I found. I could not analyze everything, but I did find some of the sharing the responses in the interviews, especially of how they said whether they need more support from their husband, or they feel that their husbands are really participating in all the childcare responsibilities as well, and how fair the delegation of tasks have been, and how happy they are. So I think, yeah, the younger generations really do have that responsibility too, and use the social media as the platform as well, to not just to probably also encourage their husbands also to post some because usually it's just the mothers who are actively posting on social media. And even if they are the ones posting, probably they should engage their husbands to join as well, to show that it's not just them doing all the childcare tasks, and their husbands are helping too, and how much that has helped them in their mothering journey, in their emotional health as well. That's what I could think of now. Yeah.
Can I just interject? Sorry. You know, just on this point about, I know some people are very critical about, you know, us showering phrases on men.
Yeah.
You know, for showing just one selfie with a baby, like, oh wow, what an amazing dad. While the mother is in the background breastfeeding and doing what else, right? But I do think, I mean, yes, of course, there's something to be said about that, but I do think it does a lot to actually show other men that, hey, this is something that can be done, and why haven't I done it? You know, and I think it does inspire, or at least help men to kind of emulate that kind of behavior. I know certainly among my own social networks, you know, people in their mid-20s, early 30s, they're into this. So a lot of my own friends, they're very inclusive, or they're very like participating in the parenting of their children. Yeah. So that's, sorry, not turning on my cam. Okay, that's it. That's just my introduction. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It's true. In fact, one of my participants actually mentioned that how his husband was just praised for washing the milk bottles, and he's like, I do the same thing. I've never get praised for that. So yeah, probably, yeah, give
but you have to start somewhere. Yeah, you have to give this positive encouragement.
Yeah.
And make role models out of those who actually take the trouble to do it. Otherwise, you'll see, but there are no role models, so you have to show the good, positive examples. So there's a Center of Fathering in Singapore, which is very active, and these are dads, a group of dads that you know, really take the trouble to bond with their kids, and they do all kinds of activities together. So yeah, it's and I think now with social media and all that, it's easier to find like-minded people. So like I always say, you know, for anything, find your tribe. So if it means a group of dads coming together on social media to exchange ideas, even to come together, do activities, of course, hopefully once COVID is over, I think these things all reinforce these behaviors, and you know, the fact that they are able to see other dads as well, like-minded, I think gives a lot of positive reinforcement, and to say, oh, I'm not the only one doing it. You know, there are other dads who also sama-sama boleh buat there. So I think it really helps.
I'd actually like to echo that as well, because one of the things that I find that sets a lot of men apart, right, is is time in the kitchen. And we're seeing more and more today of men being in the kitchen rather than women. It's increasingly less relevant, you know, as a sexist joke for women to make sandwiches when we can make our own. You know, so one of the things that I had a very close acquaintance, one of my partners actually in the past had said to me how he doesn't view cooking as a gender role, rather as an adult role. Like, as long as you're an adult, it should be within your range of skills to be able to cook for yourself at the very least. And he raises a very good point, because, you know, like, I think especially given how economics affects any and all of us, right? The less that we earn among the younger generation, there is a definite need for us to be self-sustainable, right? There is definitely a need to be self-reliant, and along with that comes my ability to cook, to like basically clean up mostly, as well as sew or wash the clothes, or any of these lists. But for whatever reason, if I were to bring this up to a lot of people in the young, like along my generation, it becomes a sense of wonder for them. It becomes a sense of, wow, you can do all of that, when really it should be more of a, we've reached that point in our lives where we need to be self-sustainable. Why aren't you doing this? It should be, why do we think that the mother, or why do we even expect that the mother should be doing it, when it should be whoever has the best opportunity to do said thing, right?
And I think roles are changing as well. I think I've seen, at least among some of my friends, where actually the woman is the breadwinner, and the spouse is the trailing spouse. So the husband is the trailing spouse. And this is, I think slowly, I think you'll see some of this happening as women, of course, become more educated and more accomplished at the workplace. Sometimes the roles can be changed. I had a friend who was, he married a Malaysian. Well, his wife was Malaysian, moved to Australia, moved to Perth, became a doctor, radiologist, and so on. He was like an IT guy. So yeah, he took care of the kids. He ran them to school. He did all the dishes. He cooked the meals. The wife was in a hospital somewhere, or a clinic. But so I think on a personal level, these things can, couples will work these things out. I mean, it just makes sense. Like, who brings in the bigger paycheck? At the end of the day, it's not about status or anything like that. It's recognized the husband is playing an incredibly important role in Australia. There is no help. You cannot hire any extra domestic help. Even it's just not possible. So that's just the way it is in Australia. I think in Singapore, Malaysia, we're very fortunate. There is some access to help, whether it's family members, whether it's hired domestic help. At least I think it's a little easier for us to access that sort of help.
Sally,
Yeah.
Can you relate to whatever Robert, Junie previously shared?
Yeah.
Wearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like for me and my husband, it's more like a partnership. Like even during this pandemic, it was quite surprising that he actually took over the cooking role. I mean, I've been cooking for every day since the pandemic happened, and there was one point of time he just start disturbing, changing the recipes and everything, and he took over the whole cooking role at home. And I see this, it's quite normal. I mean, if I look at my circle of friends, especially in my industry, because a lot of these married couples, they are actually working at a different locations. Like one is here in Malaysia, and the other partner is, the husband or the wife is like somewhere in Sudan or anywhere in the world. But when they are together, like when the spouse comes back to when they comes back to Malaysia, I mean, together with the family, she was also like sharing that the husband takes care of everything. Like he just allowed the wife to rest, and then he just does everything. And so I think education play a role in this. I mean, where especially for the working mothers, if you allow the man and woman to have equal strength, equal, it has to be like a partnership for me. It's not like we have to remove the stigma saying that it's the wife's job, to be in the kitchen and everything. But yeah, so that's my point of view on this lah. We should give awareness to people that marriage is more on a partnership, and yeah, we should normalize that husband can also do the mother's job.
Yes, that is true. That is true. That is also what is SERATA is pushing now. So we have one last question. Maybe Ms. Tashni, you can answer this question. With the talk of social media, why is it so much easier for people-led movement to viral in Semenanjung than in Sabah? Yes.
I don't know if I can answer that because I'm not based in Sabah. I don't think it'd be fair.
Okay, so let me rephrase the question. Why do you think movement in Semenanjung is very fast? I mean, people-led movement.
Is it though? Is it actually? I don't have the comparative, but I would guess that if it is faster, it could just be because of the higher connectivity in the urban areas here, and then you know, the high proliferation of mobile devices as well, and I think things tend to go viral on Twitter quicker, and there seems to be more take up within sort of KL Selangor of Twitter. This is just based on my observation than Facebook. It's easier to share, it's easier to access. This is just my guess.
But I think it's fair to say that, you know, like among the most recent, I think 2-3 years, we've seen quite a remarkable shift in the way social media is used. In that, you know, when we had that teacher not show up to class in Sabah, you know, it's kind of a fairly common issue here, and it became such a movement that they are suing the government, right? Versus what Ayn is doing today, you know, and her role in TikTok. There is a marked difference in what Ayn has done versus what was happening down here in terms of the viral responses, because I mean, how often in West Malaysia do you find like teacher not showing up to class?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I don't know if we're going to continue with the question, but just one final question that I wanted to ask Kashni. I don't know, like, okay, as an unmarried working woman like myself, how can I be a better ally in this conversation, you know, about working mothers? No?
I think actually that's a really good question. I think this ties back to what I said earlier, that even if you're, you know, too young to be thinking marriage, just entering the workforce, or have chosen to be unmarried or childless for whatever reason, which is completely fair, it doesn't mean we should stop lobbying for women who have chosen motherhood and have chosen marriage. And any pressure that we apply on corporations or employees has to be done as a group, right? It can't be like, oh, okay, I have no kids, so this isn't something I want to get involved about. So if you have, like, and it can be as simple as if you have a colleague who is expecting, or, you know, you support them, you ask them how you can help, you can speak to HR with them, you can, like, you know, just basically add your voice to the calls that they make for more fairness.
Yeah.
To add volume.
That's true, but yeah, but like I commented on the Facebook as well. I do think, I mean, that's definitely something that, you know, people like myself can do. But there's also that very, to me, unproductive assumption that maybe married people or have towards people who are unmarried without children. You know, like, oh, you're single, so like, what responsibilities do you have? You know, so
yeah,
so that's also kind of crushing.
It is, and it comes back to societal norms, right? That idea that to be a respectable woman, you have to be married with kid, that sort of thing, and it takes a long time to shift that. And we should also address our perception of what motherhood means, right? Because that stigma also applies to women who have adopted, or women who have trouble maybe getting pregnant, conceiving. We have to really sort of start expanding our perception of motherhood and how we look at it, right? Because oftentimes women are still the primary caregivers for their household, even though it may not be children, right? It could be your mother-in-law who is looking after your kids as grandchildren. It could be looking after your parents. There's still caregivers. There's still that stereotype of what a maternal sort of angle to these things is. So that would, I think, be the counter. We have to start recognizing unpaid care work in all its forms, and whatever form the duties and labor of motherhood takes place, right? It's about more than just expecting and pregnancy and delivering. It's about what comes after as well.
I like that you framed it, and I don't think it hit me so clearly when you say, yes, even without the label of mother, you're still even, carrying out a lot of maternal roles. And that's something that's socialized within you, even as a young kid.
As a young kid. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure there are people in this forum or watching who are maybe the oldest daughter or the only daughter. And I think we all know exactly. We all know what kind of work we have done in our teenage years with our siblings. And that is, should be also recognized.
Yeah, making lunch for your brothers.
Yeah, correct. Absolutely.
I'll just have to stop you right there, because I can unequivocally state that there is no such thing as a grown man, only children in men's bodies.
Having said that, I love my brothers. They can cook.
Okay, I understand. Okay, we are. Okay. It looks like we have reached the end of our session for today. Yeah, each panel and speaker has contributed so much. For me, on personal level, I appreciate this conversation very much. And I thank you everyone for being here. Dr. Nor Azrin, Mr. Robert, Johnny, and then Miss Feli, Miss Tashni, and all the other panels and viewers. I thank you for your opinions and insight of this issue. It is something that we will keep close to our heart and use it forward. Yes, yeah, use it forward. Yes, all in all, thank you for spending time with us for 2 hours plus in the Saturday. I know there's a lot of things we can do a lot of things other than today, but thank you for coming. Yes, and I thank you for your time. And yes, is there any final words? Yeah, I just don't know how to say goodbye. So yes.
Well, thank you so much for doing such a fantastic job moderating. It was really nice to chat with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Masuri. You've done a good job.
Thank you. Here's to working towards a more family-friendly workplace.
Yes.
On that note, there is serious talk among the rest of us that we want to make this, if not a yearly thing, a more more consistent thing, right? Especially given that Father's Day is coming up, we may just repeat the same thing with men this time. No, but seriously, as on behalf of SERATA, thank you everyone for showing up to this. I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you all for contributing so much to this. Like, I sincerely hope that we will change the fabric of where we're gonna go with especially with the issues to working mothers. If we want to fix any and all of this, it has to happen sooner rather than later. Well, I think that's all from our side. Is anyone else has anything else to say?
So I think.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to interject. Apart from sharing my experience, I think I received a lot more. Like, I learned a lot from all of the experts. So this is really a fruitful session for me. Thank you for having me here also. I hope we have a lot of this in the future.
Yes. Whoever in KK can just call me for coffee.
Thank you for holding the session. Bye-bye.
Okay,
thank you, everyone. Bye. Have a good weekend. Bye. Take care.
Enjoy the rest of the day.
Okay.